host, Michelle Marchant Johnson, and I'm so excited that you're here with us and that you're starting your new year off this way with inspiration to help you invite, inspire, and ignite love and passion with your Mr. Right. I'm honored to be with you, and I'm honored to partner with some of the world's top love, dating, and relationship experts. And I know our guest today, for many of you, will need no introduction, and I'm so thrilled to have her here. For those of you that may not be quite as familiar with her work, though, I'd like to introduce the lovely and talented and wise Alison Armstrong. Welcome, Alison.
Thank you, Michelle. That's really sweet.
So thank you so much for joining us, and I want to give the bulk of the time today to you, but for those of you that are not as familiar with Alison's work, I'm just going to share a little bit about her, and then towards the end of our conversation today, we'll share with you how you can go deeper with some of the wisdom and her work. So Alison Armstrong is an author, educator, and the creator of the widely acclaimed Queen's Code workshop series, which asks the question, what if no one is misbehaving, including you? She explores the good reasons behind the behavior of men and women, such as fundamental differences in the ways we think, act, and communicate. And she offers simple partnership-based solutions to improve our communication and intimacy by honoring ourselves and by honoring others. She's known for her insight, sense of humor, and ability to articulate the human experience and the predicament of gender. So Alison, I'm so excited to have you here, and our topic today I think is going to be very juicy. It's called Relationships versus Partnerships. What is the difference? So that's a really interesting and intriguing question to start us right out, and I would love for you to share with us a little bit about that and why you chose this topic.
Well, I chose this topic because it's what I am the most excited about and engaged in right now. And after almost 26 years of studying men and then blowing my mind over and over and over again, there's always something new that I'm working on. And what this has to do with is another one of the major differences that we found between men and women and our natural, or you could call it default or instinctive way of relating. And what we found that is, to me, super exciting because we can transform it, is that one of the things that is throwing men and women off from the very beginning is that they're actually not even looking for the same thing. And they use the same words, so they think they're talking about the same thing, but they're not. And what it is that most women are looking for a romantic relationship, or they might say a committed romantic relationship, or they might just say marriage, right? They're looking to be married, or they're looking to be in that long-term relationship. Well, a man may say the same thing as well. Yeah, I want to be in a relationship. But if you let him talk longer, he'll start using the word partnership. I'm looking for a partner. And as women, we think we know what he's talking about. Oh, yeah, your partner is the person you're in your romantic relationship with, right? That's how they're interchangeable. But what we've discovered is that relationships and partnerships aren't actually based in the same thing, and they're not interacting about the same things, but you have two people who think they are.
Wow.
So that's what I really want to illuminate for people today, and then propose that maybe what we really want to do is transform our relationships into partnerships, because that's where the real goodies are.
Ooh, I can't wait. Say more about this. This is such a juicy topic, I can tell.
Okay, so I'm going to use two words that won't sound juicy and they won't sound romantic at all, and yet they're, near as I can tell, the keys to the kind of union that many women are looking for. And that is that relationships, I propose that relationships are based in expectations. And I'm going to say a whole lot more about that. While partnerships are actually created through accountability. And for many women, their frustration, the source of their frustrations with men, is that they have an expectation that if a man feels a particular way about them, then he'll behave in a particular way. And that when he doesn't behave in the way that they expect, it must mean he doesn't feel the way that they're looking for. And so they try to change the way he feels about them so that then his behavior will follow. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
So what happens is when a man doesn't behave the way a woman expects him to, which, as you know, because you're familiar with my work, we largely expect men to behave the way a woman would.
Right.
Right? And so when a woman is expecting a man to behave the way a woman would in that circumstance, and he doesn't, then she tries to hold him to account for that. So she'll accuse him of not behaving the way that he should have because, right? And she'll project onto her own reasons why she would behave that way. Would only be because she didn't really love someone, because she didn't really respect someone, because she wasn't really happy with them, because she didn't really want to be with them, because, right? So she'll project her reasons onto his behavior. And probably 95 times out of 100, he'll deny it. He'll be like, what are you talking about? That's ridiculous, right? So he'll refuse to be held to account for not behaving the way she expected him to, which then has women think that men aren't accountable. Can you see that? You can't trust them. They're not accountable. They refuse to be held accountable. How are you ever going to build anything on this?
Right.
Do you want to say anything about that before I go on?
Well, one thought that just came to me while you were speaking is my husband sometimes says this thing that's kind of funny. And he says, if I do something and it can be interpreted in more than one way, and one of those ways is hurtful to you, I meant it the other way.
That's awesome. What is your husband's first name?
His name is Benjamin. We've been married for 10 years. I got married to him at 43. And, you know, another thing that came to me is when we first started going out, Alison, and I think this might be an example of an expectation, I had this expectation that we would be very open and sharing in the way we communicated. And I found that when I asked him questions, he oftentimes would answer me in very brief, concise ways. Now, I've been married to this man for 10 years now, so what I've learned is he's efficient in the way he does everything, including his speech. What can take me 3 paragraphs to say, he can say in a sentence. And I interpreted that initially as being, well, he's not really being very open with me or being very communicative with me, but he was showing up, his behavior, he was showing up fully present for me in so many ways. And fortunately, I had the wisdom to pay attention to who he was and how he was showing up, and not just this one little piece where I thought, well, he's really a man of few words. We get on the phone and the conversation, we're fortunate if it lasts 5 minutes. So I'm just wondering, is that an example perhaps of what we're talking about here?
Exactly, because I like to look at men and women in terms of being hunters and gatherers, and both men and women operate in what we call hunting or gathering mode, but it's like an operating system that has a complete framework. And so when as a man or a woman, you commit to a specific result or intention or destination or a goal, you're now in the hunting framework. And in the hunting framework, what you're speaking to and what you're listening about is the point or the problem.
The point or the problem?
The point or the problem. If everybody's fine, you just get to the point. What's the point? Is there a point? Are we going to get to a point here? Can we get to the point? Right? So they listen for the point and they'll speak right to the point. And it fits in that framework. And if you're really hunting a result yourself, even as a woman, you'll do the same thing. You'll get right to the point, and you'll get frustrated with people who aren't getting right to the point because they're wasting your time and you have a deer to catch. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Now, when we're in a gathering mode or a gathering framework, details mean everything. Mm-hmm. Because you got to go to the meadow and come back with the right kind of berry at the right level of ripeness, and make sure you don't get the one that looks a little bit different but will poison the whole tribe. And if you found the berry bush and it's 2 days from being ripe and you can't go back, you got to convey all these instructions to your tribe mates, so they'll go back and get the berries for everybody, and you got to make sure they get to the right place. And every detail, our life depends on it. And as women, we know that you only don't share details with people you don't trust, with the people you think are going to steal your berries. How is the party? Fine. How are you? I'm good. So when a man is just getting to the point, right? I'm fine. I'm good. I care about you. Yes, we should definitely go out again. We're like, yes, and they're like, no, and that's all. We think, oh, he's not being open with me.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Men are mystified by this. This is what our Understanding Women workshop sorts out for them, because they're also mystified by how a woman will change. So getting to the point one day they love, and the next day they're upset about. And another day they're like, okay, she wants me to share a lot of details, but she's getting really impatient. And could you just get to the point? Wait, but yesterday huh? And men experience women as a moving target. And it's because we are. Because what estrogen does to our brain is it makes it much easier to shift gears. Our brains are not divided into very separate rooms the way that testosterone does to a brain. And so we can switch from hunting to gathering like that. And for a man to switch from hunting to gathering, from being very focused to being open to possibilities and alternatives, and this way that we love it when men are that way, which they're usually only that way when they're at play, they actually have to go through a whole set of rituals to get into that mindset where we just switch. We're on a deadline and we're very focused. Then you give me more time, extra time, a call cancels, I've got plenty of time. All of a sudden I'm open to possibilities.
Yeah, and so our expectations are not only there, but they're shifting expectations, if I'm understanding you correctly. And then there's also this other piece where we might expect a man to know intuitively, automatically, what our expectations are without communicating them, right?
Yes, you just said so much there. Well, women, one of the things women say the most is, it doesn't count if I have to tell you. So women have expectations, and those expectations sort into some different categories I'm going to recommend. And all of them should not have to be spoken. Everybody knows. Any decent person knows you call if you're going to be late. Why should I have to ask somebody to do that? Mm-hmm. Right? Everybody knows that.
Right. Common courtesy.
Yeah, and not knowing that when a man is focused, he's late because he's focused. So he doesn't even know he's late until after he's really late, and he comes, actually we call it the breaking point. So his consciousness comes up through this, it breaks through his focus, and he's like, oh no, I was supposed to be there a half hour ago. But we're mad and we think he's flaky and he doesn't keep his word and he's a jerk because he should have called us when he knew he was going to be late. Well, he knew he was going to be late when he looked up from what he was focused on and was a half hour late. He called you exactly when he knew he was going to be late.
So he probably had tunnel vision driving down the road, just thinking, I've got to get there, I've got to get there. And that was his focus for that moment.
Yeah, or he maybe hasn't even left yet because he has a result to produce.
Mm-hmm.
And testosterone creates in the brain this ability, it's not even an ability, it's automatic, to screen out everything that's irrelevant to that result. And so let's see, so you got married when you're 43, that means you're 53?
Correct.
Okay, so I'm 56. So your brain is doing what my brain's been doing for a good 10 years, where as your estrogen levels are falling, you are gaining a greater ability to focus, which means there are things that you'll see in your environment. You'll notice it. It's not like you're tripping over everything. But what your brain does is just screens it out as irrelevant. So this is how men step over socks all the time, because the sock is relevant to what it is he's focused on. It's not that he doesn't see the sock. It's just not what they would call actionable. So
the great sock mystery is solved.
Yes. Or the putting the trash by the back door so that they'll take it out on their way to work, and what they do is move it. Yeah. So I mean, that area that we're talking about is actually, I mean, I have days and days and volumes of what men and women expect of each other that's not really fair to expect or logical to expect when you understand how different we are. But the thing that I want us to start paying attention to is that the whole domain of expectation is a loser. And if you think it, can I explain this to you? Is this cool? Please. Okay, so let's say that there's a whole spectrum, right? And on one end of the spectrum are your expectations that are completely thwarted, dashed, betrayed, disassembled, right? You're so far in the negative, right? So you could be way over on this end with your expectations being met, or you could be somewhere in the middle where he's supposed to be here at 8 o'clock and he's here at 8 o'clock. He met that expectation, right? And you could have also on this end where an expectation is actually exceeded, that is blown away, that he said he was going to take you someplace fun, and it was more fun than you ever had in your whole life. Oh my gosh, right? So, or you asked him to listen to you, and you thought that meant he'd listen to you for like 20 minutes, and 2 hours later, he's still listening. Oh my gosh, right? So we can have expectations that are exceeded, we can have expectations that are completely disappointed, and we can have expectations that are met, and we can have everything in between.
Okay.
Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the thing. Wherever they are in that spectrum, they still do the same thing. They still have the same effect. And the effect is that they breed. They're like a virus. So, for example, my husband, Greg, we started dating 25 years ago. Probably like this weekend, 25 years ago was our first date, right? Yeah, pretty cool. Greg is regularly inventing new ways to make my life better.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what he does. He figures out another way to make my life easier, to make my life better, to make it more fulfilling. And he thinks these things up. He just invents them. And then he does them. And it's amazing. Wow, that is so cool. But you know what? Even though he invented it and far exceeded any expectation that I had, it still creates an expectation, so much so that when he doesn't do that thing that he invented in the first place, I get mad at him. Like, right? Like, so the expectation that exceeded my expectations, now it becomes the norm. It moves from a surprise and a delight to, oh, now that should happen. And if it doesn't happen, then I end up being upset because he has failed my expectation.
Right.
You see it?
Yeah.
Now, what else happens, though, is it all depends on how a person thinks. So you might have someone who exceeds your expectation, and because of your own mindset and wounds and history, that may create the expectation of, okay, so where are they going to disappoint me? Right? We assume it's going to be made up, right? Like, oh, that's too good to be true. Something bad's going to happen. So now they have another expectation from an exceeded expectation. Or let's say someone fails to meet your expectations. Well, that could breed an expectation that they're always going to fail that expectation. This person's hopeless. They're a jerk. Right? And so you're just waiting for them to disappoint you again. And so then you have this attitude, and they can tell. And why should they work harder when you've already got them in the doghouse? Right? Which then now they can meet the expectation that they will fail your expectation again, which then will still create more expectation. Or you can have the opposite. One of the things that women do a lot is think that if a man fails your expectation, now what he's going to do is try harder. And especially if you really let him know how badly he failed, right, and how upset you were about it and how terrible that was. And if you make sure he knows that, then for sure he's going to work harder to make up for it.
Yeah, so the beatings will continue until the performance improves. Right.
Yeah, and to us that makes sense actually, because women change their behavior when they're criticized. Women try to make up for disappointing people. They hate to disappoint people. They will respond to being held to account for meeting someone else's expectation. And this is actually one of the things I have to do in my company a lot, because when a woman doesn't do something that I need, she'll go, oh, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Like, you're not allowed to say that. I never even asked you for this. You can't be sorry, you didn't already do it. But that's what a woman will be like, oh, I'm so sorry I didn't do that already. Oh, I should have thought of that. Right? So we can have expectations of ourselves as well. And this is one of the things I propose to women is, what if you're having a relationship with yourself? And mostly what you do is fail your own expectations. And then what you do at New Year's, right? What you do at New Year's is double down.
Yeah.
Right? So I got to work harder. I got to try harder. Right? I got to do better at that to meet your own expectation of yourself.
Right.
Can you see how doomed we are?
Yeah. Wow. It's so fascinating. And so I think the question I'm asking, and probably a lot of women also listening are asking, is, so what do we do instead? How do we learn from this and create new possibilities? Wow, this is so fascinating. I've never thought about expectations from this point of view. It's just fascinating.
Expectations, I've been working with it for over 20 years, but it was only recently that it became clear that that is the basis of our relationships. And not just our romantic relationships. We have expectations of our parents and our children and our friends and our coworkers and somebody in line at the bank. Well, most of us don't stand in line at the bank anymore, the coffee shop. We have all these expectations. And to us, they're just what should happen. And everybody knows that should happen. And many of the things we expect, we also think we're entitled to. So if it doesn't happen, it's personal and it's an affront. Yeah. You know, it's a terrible, terrible thing. So years and years ago, we could see that when a woman asks a man for what she needs, and it's also true for a man asking a woman for what he needs, is that if you ask with the expectation that they owe this to you, you're not really asking. What you're doing is demanding. And if you just think about how you are in the face of a demand, right? Even if the moment before you wanted to give that person that, as soon as they demand it of you, it takes up all the space for giving. And all you're left with is you can either resist the demand or you can submit to the demand. And resisting is going to cause problems, right? Mm-hmm. Submitting is going to cause resentment. It's going to cause disempowerment. It's going to be emasculating for both men and women. So it's not sustainable. And so anytime we're coming to another person with an expectation that we think they owe to us, that we deserve that from them, it's going to be set up to fail from the beginning. Can you see how it does that? It's like it's a buzz killer, a love killer, a space killer, a romance killer. Blech.
And is that because it will feel, even if it's not spoken that way, at least from our perception, it will feel more like a demand or an expectation rather than a request?
Yeah, it'll show up like there's going to be a consequence of them not doing it. And that's what a demand is. A demand has consequences. A real request, a real ask, would you please give this to me? Right? Mm-hmm. Doesn't have a consequence for a no. A no is actually just factual. A no is honest. A no is honoring. No, you can't count on me to do that. Oh, well, thank you. Now I can make other plans.
Right.
Right? So it's both men and women are really sensitive to the energy of demand. And men will most likely resist demands because they feel the emasculation of the submitting so keenly. They don't do submit very well. It affects them actually hormonally to submit. It'll cause depression. It's really not a good thing. But here's even more of a problem, Michelle, is that for both men and women, if we need something or something really matters to us, if we don't think we deserve it from that person, we're unlikely to ever ask for it. Mm. We mostly only ask for what we think we're entitled to, what we think we deserve, what we think we're owed, what we think we've already earned, what we think someone's supposed to give to us. We call it ordering from the menu. We only ask for what we think is already on the menu, what they already said yes to or should have said yes to. So if we need something that we think we haven't earned, we won't ever ask for it. So we mostly only ask for the things we have earned, and when we get a submit or resist response, then that leads us to the conclusion that people don't want to give us what we need and we can't count on anybody. Mm. And since men mostly resist instead of submit, they're the ones that we can count on the least. Women are more likely to submit than resist. Because instinctually we want to be liked. We survive by being liked.
Right.
So, right? So we'll be kind of undercover resistors. We'll do the bare minimum to make it look like we submitted when we're also resisting. And so all this starts with these, can you see the expectations just keep piling up into something that is untenable? And for most men, they get to the point very quickly where they just throw up their arms and say, I can't win.
Mm-hmm.
I can't win. I can't win with you.
Mm-hmm.
And if he doesn't agree that you're entitled to that expectation from him, then he loses. If he submits, he loses. If he resists, he loses. Basically, we just want a man who'll do everything all our way without us ever having to ask.
Yeah, how's that going, right?
Exactly. And we wonder why someone doesn't want to sign up for a lifetime of that, even though we've dated them for 9 months, at which point they're supposed to sign up for a lifetime.
Yeah. Yeah. So if relationships are based in expectation, and you said partnership is based in, what did you say?
Accountability.
Accountability.
Mm-hmm.
Share with us the distinction and the difference.
Well, one way you can think about accountability is just to take it apart a little bit. Count on ability, or will be held to account for. In other words, partnerships are created by people agreeing, by people signing up for, by people saying, yeah, I'll be the one that does that. Yeah, I'll be responsible for that. I'll take care of that. That's my job. Yeah, no, I accept. That's my job. And imagine, if you will, that you do what I would call sort your expectations, right? So, which means you first have to become awake to having expectations. And it's so much the water we swim in, we're not even aware we had an expectation. There's just things that should have happened. I don't have expectations. That should have happened. And so you have to first wake up your brain. Like every time you think that should have happened, oh, that must be an expectation. I have an expectation. I notice I have an expectation. And you actually have to get really excited about noticing you have an expectation, when what we'll normally want to do is pretend we don't have one, or, oh no, I don't have expectations. Those are bad. Human beings have expectations, and they're mostly invisible. But if we can wake our brain up to the biggest job it has in life is to unveil our expectations and make us aware of them when they're happening so we can have a choice about them, your brain will actually do that. But you have to get really excited. Well, if you become aware that you have an expectation, then you can start to do something conscious. And what I recommend that people do is that they sort them. And so you could have an expectation that is actually something that you don't care about that. No, that actually isn't one of my values. That's just what I got. I picked that up along the way from my parents, my family, my culture, my girlfriends, my workplace. I'm supposed to have that, but I don't actually care about it. So that would be one kind of expectation. Another kind of expectation would be something that actually you need it. You need that. Bad things happen when you don't get that. There's consequences. And that's how you can tell when you need something, is that there are consequences, serious consequences of not getting it. For example, how much sleep do you need? Mm-hmm. Right? You know how much sleep you need by when you're suffering the consequences of not getting it. So then a third possibility is that you don't need it. There aren't any consequences for not getting it. But oh my gosh, if that happened, right? So it's a happy maker. It's a bonus land. It's It's what I call the pinch me life.
Mm.
Pinch me, I must be dreaming.
Right.
So yeah, so those are amazing. And that's information that if we shared it with our partners, our life goes to a whole other level. And it's information that people mostly conceal because it's so vulnerable to share it. So let's just say we're not up to sharing our heart's desire. Okay, let's set that aside. We're not there yet. But now you've distinguished something that you actually need. Well, now you have the next problem. Are you going to commit to that need? And this is something that people don't do. They need something and then they go fishing for it. They don't go hunting for it. Like they're going to get it no matter what. They go fishing for it. Like, well, let's just throw out a net and see if it brings it in. And so that's where hinting comes from. Hinting is fishing for a need. And men don't speak hint. It doesn't register. It doesn't register for them. It doesn't have enough clarity or pressure in it to register for most men. So, and this, by the way, is what men have to do as well. They have to commit to what they need. And what happens for men and women at that point is, if you look at committing to getting that, the first thing it's going to drive up is that thing we were dealing with expectations, and that is, do you deserve it? Do you deserve to have this need met? Well, mostly people will only commit to the needs that they think they deserve. Well, but then that sets up that whole demand thing and submit and resist, and it gets all nasty. It's not going to work. And if you think you don't deserve it, you won't commit to it. And men, for example, if they think they don't deserve something they need, you will never know that they need that. It's just underground. They don't even complain about it. Because to a man, to have a weakness, to have a need is a weakness. So he's not going to show that he has a need because he doesn't want to show that he has a weakness. And he doesn't commit to the need unless he thinks he's earned it. And this, by the way, is a major source of what happens with sex between couples. Is if he thinks he's earned it, I went to work again today, I get to have sex, right? Right? Or he's befuddled because he's gone to work all month, and yet she still looks at him like he's crazy when he asks for sex. So is he still not done enough? I thought this would be enough to deserve sex. I still haven't done enough to deserve sex. Wow, I must be a really terrible person. What have I done wrong? Have I slighted her? Have I mistreated her? Is there something I should have provided for her? I mean, it's a downward spiral like crazy. We could spend hours just on that one. So I'm proposing something that's not normal for human beings, and that's that in a partnership, it's not about what you've earned. It's not about payback. It's not about, because you did this for me, I owe you this. It's, since we're partners, that means we're on the same team. That means we're in this together. That means something's only possible because we're both here, which means if you're in good shape, then we're in good shape. And if I'm in good shape, we're in good shape. And for us to be in good shape, we need us both to be in good shape. So what do you need and how can I help? Because I have everything at stake in you being in good shape, just as you have everything at stake in me being in good shape, which means you pretty much couldn't do anything kinder to me than to tell me what you need. If you tell me what you need, I can cause you to be the person I need you to be. What do you need to be happy? What do you need to be peaceful? What do you need to be satisfied? What do you need to be relaxed? What do you need? What can I do about that? Because I want you to be all those ways. And in fact, you being all those ways has a profound effect on me. Mm-hmm. Can you see how different it is?
Yeah. It's so profound. I mean, what we're talking about here is just so transformational. And so what's coming to me right now, Alison, is that Yes, we all have expectations, and it's even okay, as you talked about the sorting process, it's even okay to sort and recognize that some of these expectations are deep needs, and it's okay to express them. And in a partnership, when you talked about accountability in a partnership, then more or less you're agreeing based on knowledge and requests of your partner's needs or expectations. You're agreeing to meet certain of those expectations. That's part of showing up in the partnership. If two people have a different need for sex, for example, a woman may not feel like she needs it as often as her man, but he's giving her love and support in other ways, then she may choose to be there for him in that way more frequently because she knows that's a deep need and expectation for him. I'm just kind of working with this idea. Am I kind of on the right track?
Yeah, you're doing really well. I mean, we're talking about transforming expectations into accountabilities. So which of them are just trash? We're just going to let it go. When it shows up, we're going to get over it. Oh, isn't that silly, right? Some of them would be a total bonus. Oh my gosh, if you gave that to me, I wouldn't even know what to do with myself. And then others are what really matters. And if we're going to engage in a partnership, there's more steps to it because you want to work it all the way to the end. So if we're going to take your example, right? Let's say that, and it doesn't matter because in couples, it's going to end up both ways depending on what's happening in life and their ages and their hormone levels. And sometimes she'll want sex more often and sometimes he'll want sex more often. But let's just say one of them needs more sex. And sex has tremendous benefits in terms of mental and emotional and even physical well-being. So there's a tremendous cost to not having enough sex. So let's say enough sex for one partner is more than enough sex for the other partner. But they need them, right? Because that's sex. So if the partner who doesn't need it as much is willing to be accountable for providing sex, yeah, I'm your gal, I'm your guy. Well, then the question would be, okay, so you're signing up for my need for more sex. What do you need to be happy to have signed up for that? What do you need to not be having a consequence for having sex that you weren't looking for? What's my part in it? Well, maybe your part in it is when I agree to meet you in bed at 9 o'clock to have sex, your part is then to cause me to want to be there. I didn't want to be there when I showed up, but your job is to then want me to be there. You know, like, I want you to do this to me and this to me, and this is, you should touch me like this and say this like this, until my being there is the best thing I did all week. Thank goodness I signed up for this even when I didn't want to. And then say your partner says, okay, I'll do that. Then you ask the question, so what would you need to do that? So what would you need to give me that so I could give you the other? Well, let's see, what would I need? I need you to take a shower. Okay, I'll be accountable for taking a shower for when we've made an appointment to have sex. Okay, I can do that. Well, is there anything you need to take a shower? Well, yeah, I need you to put the baby to bed so I can take a shower, so I can be in bed, so you can make me want to have sex, so then you can have sex twice as often as you normally do. Okay, I'll put the baby to bed. Well, is there anything you need to put the baby to bed? I need you to remind me to put the baby to bed. So can you see it? It's just dialing it back all the way to what's going to be the initiating act. Where does it get started? And it's always good if where it gets started is the person who needs it the most. That they're the person who takes the first action. Does that make sense? You don't want the first action to begin with the person whose need didn't start this whole conversation in the first place.
Right.
You want to be in control of the initiation when it's your need, and you want to not have to be in charge of the initiation when it's not your need. That's a good way for it to never work out.
Mm-hmm. Wow. This has just been so fascinating. There's so much here, and I have just loved what you've shared. Alison, thank you so much.
You're really welcome. And if I'm not looking at the time, so I don't know how we're doing, but I just would like to leave your listeners with that this is actually how men are thinking. And that when you're dating a man, he relates to dating as a certain set of accountabilities that doesn't include texting you every day. And when he signs up to be your boyfriend, he'll do that when he thinks he can succeed at the set of accountabilities that represents. And he won't go anywhere near getting married until he thinks he can succeed at the accountabilities of a husband. And those are the things we should be interacting with him about. Instead of, but I thought you loved me, therefore you're going to marry me. If we were asking, so what do you think a husband is accountable for? If we were married, what would you think you were accountable for and I was accountable for? If you start engaging at the level of accountability, you're actually now in their conversation.
Yeah.
Changes everything.
Yeah. Wow. This has just been so yummy and so interesting and fascinating. There's so much here. And I hope, ladies, you've been taking some notes. And if not, you probably want to go back and listen again. And Alison, I want to give you a chance to share a little bit more about, I know we've just touched one little piece of your work and just the tip of the iceberg of that. So I wonder if you could share with the audience a little bit more about what's happening in your work. I know you've got some really exciting things going on, and a little bit more about how they can stay connected. We're going to have a link posted right underneath your video and audio here. So that's one way. But I'd love for you to just to tell us a little bit more about what's going on with your work.
Thank you for that. We're in a really exciting time because for 22 years, we have been creating curriculum. It's called the Queen's Code curriculum, and it is unraveling the conflicts between what's natural and normal for most men to do and be and say and behave most of the time versus women's expectations of them. So we have unraveled our expectations just for all men, our expectations of sex, our expectation of relationship, our expectation of ourselves. We hold ourselves up to impossible ideals, and that dramatically affects our self-confidence, which is the most attractive quality to men. So, yeah, and we're shooting ourselves in the head all the time. So all these different parts of what it takes to take these opposing instincts and opposing perspectives and make that little adjustment, right? So they stop being a battle and instead become complementary. That's what we've been putting together in these 5 workshops over the last 22 years. And finally, they're now available to the whole world. So the first workshop, the Queen's Code, is going to be on the internet, a combination of webinar like this and recorded workshop the last weekend in January. And by April 21st, our whole Queen's Code curriculum, 5 different workshops, is going to be available 24/7 in our e-learning center, which has the videos, and then it has all these activities and ways to interact with information so that you make sure that it gets applied and implemented and transforms your life depending on your favorite ways of learning. And it's a huge project. We took it on 4 years ago when we published the Queen's Code book, because we wanted to get the rest of the information to people. And within 2 weeks of publishing that book, it was being read in over 50 countries. And we knew there's no way we were ever going to get our workshops to Moldavia. No, we're not going to Macedonia. No, I'm probably not going to do it on the West Bank. No, probably. But how do we make this all available? And so it's finally coming to fruition.
That's wonderful. That's so wonderful, Alison. Congratulations on that, because the whole world needs the work that you're doing. And I know it'll be a big blessing to people that are all over the world that may otherwise never have the opportunity to attend one of your live events. So congratulations on that. And to all of you, because I know we have women out there from many, many countries listening in, please click on the link below Alison's interview so that you can stay connected with her and stay up to date on her different courses, particularly as they're available in your part of the world. So Alison, I'm just blown away by what you've shared today. I've just loved this. This has been fabulous. And I hate to let you go, truthfully, because I just love tapping into your wisdom, but what you've shared has been such a great gift, and I know it will bless the lives of all of our listeners. So thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. It's really a pleasure. Thanks for letting me do this.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing so generously. And to all of you that are listening, we also want to thank you for joining us, because we know that your time is valuable, and the fact that you're here means that you're a woman who's dedicated to your own growth and development, and that you desire to have even better relationships. So congratulations. Bye-bye for now.